Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for being with us tonight. My name is Ryan Vink. I'm the project manager for our Transportation Master Plan, which is something we do an update every 5 years. So this is the 2024 Transportation Master Plan. Thank you for being with us tonight to hear about our first public consultation center for this event. I am, of course, with Oxford County, and our consultant for this project is Parsons, and we have Parsons with us tonight, both the two project managers, John McGill and John Grieve. And I will pass this over to them to start talking about our Transportation Master Plan. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Ryan. My name is John McGill. I'm the project manager on behalf of Parsons. Thrilled to have you with us tonight to give you a chance to comment on our Transportation Master Plan update, and hopefully we get a meaningful conversation going later after the presentation. So we will be doing a presentation. John Grieve, my co-host, will be doing the presentation and walking you through where we're at and what we're doing. Some rules for housekeeping tonight. We will be muting you during John's presentation and turning cameras off, other than for John, so that you can see him doing his presentation. As Ryan mentioned, the presentation is being videoed and recorded. So thank you for allowing us to do that. At the end of the presentation, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions or submit comments. There is a Q&A function on the right-hand side of your screen, I hope, where you can post questions, and I will take them and answer them at the end. If you wish to speak to our team, you can put your hand up. There's a little hand icon at the bottom, and we will take you in turn so that we can answer your questions, and we will stick around until all the questions have been dealt with. The presentation is about 35 minutes or so, and then we'll deal with the questions and answers period at that time. So thank you for that. Just to start the presentation, the purpose of the Public Consultation Center is to introduce the Connecting Oxford 2024 project and collect feedback from you on a couple of things, including the existing state of the county's transportation system as you see it and as you use it, your vision on the county's future transportation goals and visions, developing trends in transportation, and most importantly, how can you get involved and stay involved with the study throughout our timeframes. The consultation objectives today present this study and the planning process to be undertaken, because it is a master plan process that follows the MCAA master plan process, the EA process. We want you to help us distinguish the most transportation issues, needs, and opportunities, and gather feedback on transportation within Oxford County. If you see on the right-hand side, there's a QR code. We do have a website set up. It is at Oxford County CA Speak Up Oxford, where you can go that way and deal with the interactive map. And I think the interactive map is very helpful. We've got more than 50 comments already on the interactive map. So hopefully you can go there, and if you have any comments, provide comments there. You can go online and complete the survey. And if you scan the QR code, it'll take you directly to that website, so you can do those things there and follow the project there. So with that update and introduction, I'm going to turn it over to John Grieve. Ryan and myself will be turning our cameras off. Ken, I think your camera's on, so you may want to turn your camera off for ensure the bandwidth for the presentation remains steady for everybody. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to John, and I'll be watching the Q&A comments, and we'll be back with you at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to John Grieve.
Thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. As has been said, my name is John Grieve. I'm the Deputy Project Manager and Transportation Analysis Lead for this assignment and work with Parsons in our GTA community. So as was said, the presentation night is about 30 minutes. I have a number of slides that I want to go through with you, give you a breakdown as to what the project's about, where we are in the process, what's next for us, and then really the bulk of this event this evening will be an opportunity for question and answer, where we'll be not only doing the question and answer through the portal, but also giving you an opportunity to speak to us directly. And of course, anything that may come up afterwards, we encourage you to go and visit the website and give us your feedback that way. So my first slide here is kind of what is Connecting Oxford 2024. So what is it? So it is the next update to the County of Oxford's Transportation Master Plan. And what a Transportation Master Plan is a long-term strategic planning document which guides and outlines policy for the development of a county's or a municipality's infrastructure over a number of years. In this case, this plan will look at managing and making improvements to infrastructure to accommodate future travel demands out to the year 2046. Sorry. And really, we want to ensure that this master plan provides for the safe, effective, and sustainable or provides for a safe, effective, and sustainable multimodal transportation network, and it allows for movement of all modes. There's been a great rise in multimodal transportation objectives throughout Ontario and quite frankly the world in the number of years. And so we want to ensure that this Oxford Transportation Master Plan is reflective of that, but is also supportive of the unique travel patterns seen in the freight goods movement in this area, in the agricultural sector in this area, as well as recognizing the low carbon and sustainable policies and approaches that the county has made in the last few years. So again, why are we doing an update? As I've said, healthy communities, the increased awareness and emphasis on multimodal transportation is on the rise. We want to balance those objectives with the goods movement of the area, the agriculture industry, and then taking into effect climate change, sustainability, and safety. We want to balance needs. I think we all can recognize, particularly of these last few years, travel patterns, travel needs, mode share, mode shift have all been drastically changed, in some cases permanently. So we want to ensure that this plan is reflective of those current needs of the county. Economic vitality or viability is paramount. We want to come up with a plan that is affordable, that is implementable. Any solution or any recommendation we want to make, we want to ensure that it can be actually implemented without undue stress on the finances of the county and therefore the finances of their residents. Obviously, we want to increase connectivity, especially in a predominantly rural county. Often connectivity is limited or is focused on a few key connections. We want to improve that. We want to increase alternative connections, increase secondary and tertiary connections, and make moving around the county more easy, safer, more efficient, more effective. And then road safety obviously is a paramount objective or concern. We want to ensure that all of this movement can be done safely.
So what are we focusing on with Connecting Oxford 2024? I've said this a few times, we're focusing on all modes. We're focusing on the unique makeup that is Oxford County's transportation network. It is made up of private automobiles. Private automobile ownership dominates travel volumes on the network, but there is an increasing number of active transportation users on the system within the county. There is a high demand or a high volume of intercommunity transportation, which is growing and evolving. And then probably what is most unique with Oxford County's transportation system is the goods movement and the agricultural vehicles. Oxford County has thriving modes or thriving industries with both that have very unique needs for transportation systems. And so we want to help balance that, those needs and those travel patterns or travel flows with the others through the rest of the county. And so really Connecting Oxford 2024 is going to identify infrastructure to support growth. It is going to develop a plan for all modes of travel within the county's transportation system. It's going to identify strategies to reduce the reliance or the use of single occupant vehicle trips. We want to recommend measures for managing and implementing safer transportation and promoting healthier communities. And then most importantly, and what quite frankly we are doing tonight, is we want to provide a forum for input and awareness to the general public on what that system is and the initiatives associated with it. So broadly, the influences that are affecting this plan or that are helping drive its development come from all angles, come from a wide variety of sources. There are land use or traditional land use impacts, the commercial residential makeup of the county, the agricultural makeup of the county, and then the wide variety of densities from the urban centers to the most rural hamlets all have an impact. The mode split, the types of travel, types of vehicles on the road have an impact and have an influence. The public here tonight, you have an impact and an influence. Councils, both the regional council and the local municipal councils, have an impact. From a level of service or a technical analysis or qualitative analysis perspective, there is influences on how we review the network and consider its performance. Legislatively, there are county policies, there are provincial policies, there are even federal policies which have influence on this plan. Technology is a ever evolving influence and is probably the one that is changing the fastest. So what are those impacts and influences on the network and on the plan? So we want to adjust for those. And then even just the other influences on travel related to other existing plans or existing policies, and how do they influence our plan. And finally, or second to last, I should say, financial impacts. I spoke very briefly. The reality is the county demands and needs a plan that is financially sustainable. There is no use to anyone involved in this process have a plan that is developed that cannot be implemented, that cannot achieve its goals because of financial constraints. So we have to balance those financial realities, the financial ability of the county and its partners, but also achieve those goals of the qualitative level of service, achieve the desires of mode shares change and all of those other elements. And finally, demographics is the people. What are the people like in this county? What are their needs? What are their wants? And what types of jobs do they have? What types of commuting patterns do they have? All of those influence this master plan and its development. So John briefly stated this, and I just want to quickly explain a little bit further that this master plan is following the class environmental assessment process. And what that means is by going through the development of the master plan and the way we are and engaging the public multiple times through the process, we are able to satisfy phases 1 and 2 of the municipal class EA. And what that allows is the county then, should they or when they proceed with any recommended road improvements or other projects in the future, they are able to start at a detailed design phase of that project and therefore accelerate its ultimate delivery. So these are the first two, you could say the first two steps of that process, and lets them start at step 3 as opposed to starting at step 1 on all road projects. This allows for every project that's identified in this plan start at step 3. And as part of satisfying the process, we have to develop a problem and opportunity statement associated with this project. And that's the statement that's in bold in the gray box at the bottom of your screen. And it reads, as Oxford County continues to grow and establish itself as a thriving community in southwestern Ontario, it is imperative that transportation policies and the multimodal transportation network align with the county's goals and visions. Transportation Master Plan provides the opportunity for the county to plan and forecast network changes and improvements to support continued growth, all while enhancing county policies around transportation demand management, freight movements, agricultural mobility, and low carbon transportation solutions. So the next number of slides I have, I really am going to go through relatively quickly. There's maps of the county and highlight the county road system. So we have a broad county-wide map you see here on the screen, and then we have a close-up or a zoom in of the town centers or of town centers in each of the 9 local municipalities in Oxford County. So we can use these during our question and answer period to mark up any comments or have any conversation that any of you want to have about the road network. So we wanted to show you that we have them. We can come back to them later, but as I said, this one is of the whole county. You can see in yellow is the provincial highway network running almost kind of through the middle of the county. Obviously has a huge influence on movement within the county, and then the dark black lines are county roads. The red is the boundaries. The dashed lines are the boundaries between the local municipalities, and then the light black or thin black lines are the local roads. As I say, we have a zoom in or a close up of Ingersoll, Tavistock, Woodstock, Tillsonburg, Innerkip, Norwich, Thamesford, Mount Elgin, and of Mount Elgin. So we can use those, like I said, later in this evening if we want to go back and mark up those maps, have any comments and speak to them, we can use them there. So I'm just going to take a quick pause there. I'm going to grab myself a sip of water. John, I see a few questions have come in. Is there anything that you want to address before I keep going in my slides?
Well, no, but I think Richard made a comment about what's the definition of transportation modes that we use today, what's our priorities, and I think he got his answer in one of your later slides, John, and I thank him for his comments and questions. But just to reiterate, we will be looking at all modes, whether it's a private vehicle, some form of transit, publicly provided or privately provided, rail, airports, and air travel, and all of the things that go along with active transportation, being cycling and pedestrians, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a definition it's a broad definition, transportation modes, but We're going to be addressing all of them, and we're looking for you tonight to try and help us prioritize which of those modes is most important to you and how you'd like to see us address them. That's what this meeting's all about, to hear from you. So John, hopefully that gives you a chance.
Yep. No, that's great, and I agree with you, John. That's this plan is really looking at everything, and it's about bringing more equality to all of those modes. Quite often, you know, historically, traditionally, the single vehicle, the private automobile, has reigned top of the pile. And really, the most effective master plans, the most successful master plans in the last decade, are ones that consider all modes, that understand that all modes need something a little bit different, but a complete network is one that provides for all of those, provides a solution or a method of getting around for all those modes. And as I was saying earlier, Oxford County has a layer of uniqueness on top of it, in that you have such a strong goods movement, as well as agricultural sector as well, associated with not only a kind of a traditional rural municipality in Ontario. Often you don't see all three in a single municipality. You may see one or the other. So Oxford County is quite unique and really presents a great opportunity to look at things holistically and for all modes. So it's exciting for us as a project team to be working with you and hearing about how residents use the network on a day-to-day basis, how county staff have been working over the last years to improve that. It's a great opportunity to make some improvements. So the next series of slides that I have here is really to talk about that network that exists, to talk about what we have seen. We're very much at the existing conditions background review stage of this assignment. I'll show you a timeline later in my slides, but these next the next series of slides, the next group of slides, really highlight each of those elements of that network that exist. So this one just highlights some of the recent projects the county has done and improvements they have made, whether it be new road sections, new cross-section updates, like the one in the top left on Oxford Road 16, a new trail bridge, the picture on the top middle, absolutely gorgeous bridge. I will be sure to travel over that before the end of this project. That looks like a great experience. And even smaller investments or smaller changes in the new pedestrian crossings, both in Innerkip and in Woodstock. Those are often closing key gaps or links in networks, in this case a pedestrian network, that just make moving around the county that much easier. And then doing new intersection control measures, like a roundabout at Oxford Road 2 and 6, another great initiative. And then another urbanization of a road in Woodstock is another recent example of a project highlight. So first I'm going to talk about the road network. So the county road has county owns approximately 1,300 kilometers of road networks, and has invested heavily in that network over the recent years. $28 million in road rehabilitation, major road reconstruction of Oxford Road 16, which we showed you, road urbanizations, including the one in Woodstock of that previous page, and then the intersection improvements. So they've invested heavily. They continue to invest heavily on an annual basis on maintaining and improving that network. And so then the map on the left is our analysis, our preliminary or our existing condition analysis of that network. And what we've done is we've calculated the volume to capacity ratio. And so what that is a measure of the vehicle volume, the existing volume that travels on that road, compared to its capacity. So you can picture a cup. An empty cup would have a volume to capacity ratio of 0. A full cup would be full, 100%. And expressed as a ratio, it would be 1.0. So what you can see on the map is predominantly all county roads are operating at low and acceptable volume to capacity ratios. For the most part, they're all under 0.6 or 60% full, which would represent the dark green and then all the shades of green seen on the map. The two yellow roads you see, so the section of 59 south of Woodstock and the section of County Road 2 west of Woodstock Ingersoll, sorry, have a volume to capacity ratio of between 0.6 and 0.7, so about 60 to 70% full. And then there's a small section of road almost not visible just at the south end of Ingersoll that is showing a higher capacity of 0.7 to 0.9, sorry, 0.7 to 0.8. And really from a traffic perspective or a transportation engineer's perspective, we're quite pleased with this. This shows there is existing excess capacity within the network. This network has the ability to accommodate additional trips without needing improvements immediately. We're not saying there may not need to be further improvements as time goes along, but in the immediate sense, in the very short-term sense, this network is operating very well and is a great starting point for our analysis. Many of you may have seen recently the county approved their cycling transportation master plan, so the kind of active transportation equivalent of what we're doing here. And so this plan is being incorporated and we're bringing in the recommendations to this master plan to ensure we're compliant and reflective of that plan's findings. And really the cycling network throughout the county is extensive. There are over 20 kilometers of on-road facilities being urban shoulders and bike lanes throughout the county. There's 30 kilometers of off-road facilities throughout the county, and then the county shoulder conditions, many of which allow for and provide some space for road users, or sorry, cyclists and active transportation users. There are hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of those shoulder conditions around the county, and really represent opportunities for continued investment in that system. So that master plan, what it did was it set out a number of networks, a number of key priorities for the system and initiatives for the county to focus on in the coming years. They identified a primary network, shown here in the thick red line, approximately 190 kilometers, and so that's a really critical corridors that are connecting urban centers and settlement areas. They have a secondary network, the blue line on the map, that's connecting the smaller settlement areas to each other and to the primary network. And so that's another 180 kilometer network. There's 20 kilometers of connecting links, which really are on local roads and are part of what is the broader or larger MTO province-wide cycling network. So you see those predominantly through the city of Woodstock, following the alignment of that MTO cycling network. And then down between Tillsonburg and Norwich, there is a proposed off-road trail that would connect those using an abandoned rail corridor, which really is a great opportunity for an off-road network, which is often the type of network that is most desired by users. So what about transit? So transit in the area, there are many options. It's growing, it's evolving. Currently, the T-GO is an intercommunity transit service between Tillsonburg, Ingersoll, and Woodstock. And then even further to the surrounding areas in Middlesex County. There are regional transportation integrations of transit service, including via rail, as well as carpool lots, which are a less traditional form of transit. It's more another mode all in itself, but those exist and provide opportunities for a different transit option. And then the county is still working on the proposed intercommunity bus transit route for the townships of East Zora and Tavistock, Zora, and Blandford Blenheim. This map just shows those routes and some of those features. Again, we can come back to this map and talk in more detail during the question and answer if the group so desires. But you can see the routes, the existing TGO route in the south, the northern route that has been proposed and is in its works, and as well as other services. So transit, cycling, and roads really are often the three elements of a system that are most talked about. But in the county, you also have rail and airport modes. From a freight perspective, there's the main line for both CN and CP that travel through the county and play a role in your overall system, and as well as the short line services. There is passenger rail within the county, so the Via Rail stations and stops in Ingersoll and Woodstock, as well as the potential or the future Metrolinx pilot that's along the north CN line, which will have a potential impact on the county. Throughout the county, there are a number of rail crossings, which are another element of your network or of your overall transportation system. And the county has recognized the need in some cases to improve those crossings. As an example, the improvement along Oxford Road 4 that was done a few years back. And finally, last but certainly not least, is the Tillsonburg Regional Airport. Definitely provides a unique opportunity for this plan to consider as part of the overall system. Right now, it really serves as a flight training center. There are some flying clubs that work out of there, a few private and corporate aircraft, as well as EMS services. But in the future, there's obviously potential for intercommunity air travel, and definitely the Tillsonburg Airport could play a part of that. So that's something we would look at and are going to look at throughout this assignment.
John,
Yep.
Just give you a chance to have a drink again.
Yep.
We sort of just walked through some of the existing conditions of the transportation network in Oxford County. Thank you for that, John. We're now going into some emerging trends and some vision and goals, but I just wanted to remind everybody on the call that if they go to the Speak Up Oxford website, there's a map there. You can give us comments about issues that you might be aware of, things you like that you've seen that we've done, and any comments you might want to make on that map. So just an opportunity for an interactive participation, and I just thought I'd mention that and remind people that they can post comments there quite easily. So, John, I will turn it back to you. I just wanted to make that reminder for everybody and give you a little break.
Thank you. Breaks are always appreciated. Yeah, as John said, we've got only about 5 or 6 more slides, and then we'll open it up. But yeah, I wanted to just highlight quickly some emerging trends in transportation and how they're affecting or impacting Oxford County. You can see there are many of them. Mobility is changing, is evolving. How we move around, when and why we want to move around is changing. Safety is becoming more and more important and needs to be more predominantly considered as we design our networks. The idea of a 15-minute community, or the concept of a 15-minute community, is really growing in importance and desire. So the ability to kind of function within a 15-minute walk or cycle or micromobility trip is growing. And so how can we perhaps have pockets or areas of the community that maybe have that, or sorry, areas of the county which have that? Obviously, we're not going to be able to have a 15-minute community across the whole county. That's unrealistic, but are there opportunities for those small areas? Reality of Canada, all weathers, 4 seasons. Canada, despite what people say, we do have 4 seasons. Definitely the length of those seasons is changing. We seem to have a longer summer and a shorter winter. Personally, I like the winter, so I wish our winters were longer. But yes, we have to design a system that can accommodate those 4 seasons and what those 4 seasons bring. Transportation demand management is definitely an emerging and important trend. So identifying opportunities to reduce or redistribute travel demand. Things like carpooling is often the first TDM measure, or transportation demand management measure, people think of. So that's, or working from home as the example we have here. Those are 2 that are often the first that are considered or used, and they are opportunities to reduce the number of vehicles on the road. As I said, in line with the county's sustainable goals, working towards net zero emissions and even meeting Canada's targets is an important emerging trend. Intercommunity transportation, enhanced freight and commuter rail, obviously big topics within the county, and expanding active transportation opportunities. That's another that the county has clearly shown importance toward. So this slide really talks about the vision of this assignment, and a brief bit of demographic information that we've seen, and that definitely will have an influence on this assignment. So the vision, or the vision statement for this project that we're working with, is that through 2024 to 2046, Oxford County will be supported by a transformative transportation system to lead and achieve sustainable and effective and efficient outcomes and benefits, while promoting a safe, efficient, and sustainable multimodal transportation network to move people and goods into and throughout the county, including access and connections to opportunities and essential services, while improving mobility for all types of road users and communities. And so the demographic information that we are seeing and we want to be cognizant of as we design and develop our review and make our recommendations and develop policies to support those, is we're seeing auto ownership and operating costs are exceeding 20% of household income, which obviously is a big chunk of that household income. So that leads us back to the multimodal mini opportunity discussion, and so ensuring people have access to those alternative options, not only in the county but even in the province and across Canada. We have an aging population. As our populations age, their mobility choices often change and even can be restricted. Things like losing licenses or other financial realities. So again, we want to develop a system and a network that can evolve with that population. Because of recent world events, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we want to have a more complete, that's more to the hybrid work. We're seeing hybrid working styles. No longer does everyone work the 9 to 5, drive to work, or commute to work. So that is changing how our system is used, and we want to be responsive to that. More complete and compact urban form is in response to environmental stewardness that we want to have, and protect our environments and improve them where we can for future generations to come. So being cognizant of our sprawl or our growth, and doing it in a effective and a sustainable way. And finally, even our technology, our social media and rideshare, those communities, those impacts are having drastic changes or drastic impacts on changing our network, and how the population uses that on a day-to-day basis. So before we go to the Q&A, there are two other slides I wanted to share with you. So simultaneously to this master plan, the county also asked us to look at Oxford Road 4. So Oxford Road 4, we're doing a corridor study where we're looking at opportunities. We're examining the corridor in more detail than a transportation master plan would, and we are looking at current road conditions and intersection performance, and looking for any opportunities or any recommendations we can make in order to make improvements. And so that's what this corridor study is doing. And our findings and any recommendations we come up with will become part of the master plan process. So we are looking from the full length of corridor or Oxford Road 4, and we've also included the recently acquired Oxford Road 60, looking at travel patterns along that as well. So similarly, or the map on our left here just shows you the zoom in of the volume capacity map that I showed earlier, really showing that from a segment or a corridor level, the volume of capacity on the network is quite good, and there are limited impacts. We are in the process of doing more specific and more detailed intersection analysis along the corridor. So you see on the right, the gray boxes are the 6 intersections we are looking at in more detail. We know OR 15 and Parkinson Road is definitely an intersection of interest and has been identified as an intersection that needs improvements, even as far back as the previous transportation master plan. So we are working with the county to help advance that analysis and make recommendations on potential improvements that they then can bring forward and implement in the future. And then the box in the middle is really a review of the collision statistics along the corridor. And yes, it shows over the last 8 years that there's been about 160 collisions. But in reviewing that information in detail and looking at the locations of those collisions, really not seeing any specific glaring safety issues, but we definitely will be taking into consideration all of these collision statistics as we look at those intersections in more detail, and ensure that should we make a recommendation for some sort of improvement at those intersections, that it wouldn't adversely impact safety and therefore potentially cause a rise in collisions. So definitely have that information as part of our analysis as we move through this process. So what are the next steps of this assignment? Really, we are still very much at the beginning of this process. We're in, completing task 1 of our existing and background review. Through the winter, we are going to be evaluating alternative solutions. So what sorts of improvements may be necessary or could be proposed in order to manage the growth or expected growth throughout the county over the next 20 years. We will then moving into drafting recommendations and preparing our master plan, and then just before the summer of next year, we will look at issuing it for final public review, and then once approved, we'll be passed over to the county for implementation over the next number of years. So following this public consultation center and really broadly the consultation we've been doing over the last few months, we want to review and assess everyone's comments, understand your concerns and priorities. We want to continue to work on outlining the issues and needs and opportunities. We're going to finalize that problem statement and the visions and goals. We will then move into looking at transportation or proposed transportation infrastructure, developing policies and strategies to support that infrastructure, and really look toward presenting our findings to you, the public, in our second round of consultation. Oops, sorry, wrong slide, wrong way. So yeah, so consultation, this is not your only opportunity. This is not intended to be the only opportunity. You can see we've been consulting many people over the course of this year. In March, we had advisory committees, both internal and external. We had an economic development forum in May. We've just finished a series of pop-up events at the farm show at Ingersoll and at Ribfest. We're here tonight at the virtual PCC. And then in the winter, likely February, March, we'll be doing all of that again. So we'll have another round of advisory committee meetings, another forum, as well as another consultation center for everyone. So again, you've seen this many times, but we really do encourage you to go to the Speak Up Oxford website. And so you can go to oxford.ca/speakup. You can scan the QR code. We want to hear from you. Parsons team, we may be the technical experts, the professionals that deal with this sort of subject on a day-to-day basis, but you are the residents of the community. You live it, you drive the roads every day. You are the ones that are going to give us that input that really makes a complete plan and provides for the greatest opportunity to succeed in the future. So we really, we need your input, we want your input, and so please provide it both tonight and then go to the website. Encourage your neighbors to, encourage your colleagues, your coworkers. We want to get as many as many comments as we can, and we will be taking suggestions or keeping the website open for the comments through the middle of October, so to October 19th. So very quickly, before we go to the Q&A, I wanted to just show everyone. So this is the Oxford County website, or the Oxford County Speak Up website. So this is oxfordcounty.ca/speakup. And so this, for our Oxford County 2024 website, you can see we have all the information we taught. I mean, all of you would have come here to sign up to this evening. We've got contact information. Important documents will be posted here. We will keep everyone up to date with kind of what's new and what's happening throughout the project. And then right now there is both the feedback form and the interactive map. And the interactive map is really the greatest tool. You can see how quickly it loads. It loads in a second, and you can zoom in, zoom out, and provide us comments on kind of exactly where you've run into an issue, or issues or benefits or things you enjoy. What's your favorite intersection? What's your least favorite intersection? Where's that blind corner? Where's that issue with trucks or agriculture vehicles? And you can see on the left here, when you add pins, you can actually categorize them based on kind of what broad category are they in. And really you can zoom in, you can zoom in all the way down to, you can see Woodstock as an example. People are making comments, right down into the details. And so we really encourage you, please go on this this map, provide us your pins, as I say, encourage your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues to do the same. And this is what lets us develop a plan that is most responsive to the community needs. And so with that, John, I will turn it back to you, and we can start having or start going over, I should say, some of those questions that have been posed.
Right. Thanks, John. Great presentation. And and a great reminder about the website, Speak Up Oxford, and how people can use it. We do thank you for attending, and we will be answering questions for a while, depending on how long you want to stay. Just a reminder, I'll be reading the questions and answering the questions that come in the Q&A panel. And if you would prefer to speak to us, there's a hand button at the bottom, and you can put your hand up, and I will turn to you in order as the hands come up, and we will respond to you. If you want to turn your camera on, just a reminder, we are recording, so hopefully everybody's cool on having their cameras turned on if you decide to do that. So we will start the Q&A period now, and if we have to go back to any of the slides to look at things that came up during the conversation, we can do that. So Richard had a couple of questions while other people are thinking about questions or comments they might want to make. And I'll just read to the group. Does the Metrolinx pilot include stops in Oxford County, or is the reference to the stops in Perth? And I think, John, that was on one of your slides about the current state of transportation, rail, and airport. I don't know if you want to flip to it, but there was a comment about the Metrolinx pilot back around slide 22 or 23. Yeah, there you go. So there's a comment about the Metrolinx pilot on as far as we know, the pilot, as we understand it today, it runs on the CN line to the north of Oxford County, does not travel on the CPR line that goes through Oxford County. And there will, as we know it today, there is no intention to put any passenger rail on that CPR line, as it is a main freight line for CPR. And at the moment, I don't think anybody intends to put a second track in there. So no, I don't think Metrolinx has any intentions of putting a stop in Oxford County. Richard, you mentioned Perth. I personally don't know where Perth is in and around Oxford County. The only one I know of, I think, is out by Ottawa. So I apologize, I don't know the answer to that one. But as far as the pilot goes, no, there are no stops at the moment in Oxford County. The other question that Richard asked is, will the project address intra-county transportation? So yes, it will. We will be doing some establishment of origin and destinations, and John has already started that with his demands on the existing conditions. But we are also looking at intra-community transit as well, and I think there was some slide. I think the slide before this one, John, had some intra-regional transportation network comments here about where some transit is. And I can tell you that when Ryan and I were at the Rib Fest on Friday, we had quite a passionate discussion about TIGO and how it can better serve the community, and hopefully we'll get some good feedback on that going forward. Ryan, I don't know, you had a extensive conversation about TIGO and how it can better serve the community. I don't know if you want to make any comments about that conversation. Having trouble with your, yeah, no problem. So anyway,
sorry, John, just to add before you move on,
Yeah.
I agree with your comment about how we are definitely looking at intra-community. It's is really quite frankly a vital component, because the boundaries of Oxford County, they are not hard, they are not impassable, and so all of our modes, we have that lens. We understand, private automobiles and the commuter very often is traveling beyond Oxford County, and we want to understand that the goods movement is absolutely beyond county boundaries, and we have to understand that. And then from a transit network perspective, in this area, we see bus services that are traveling between counties, and even the most successful active transportation networks often need to travel between counties in order to make those connections. So yes, this is not a solely within the boundary and border of Oxford County. That is our focus, absolutely, but ensuring that what we're focused on doesn't adversely impact anything that Middlesex County or Waterloo region are doing, as an example. We definitely want to keep that in consideration.
John, thank you. I lost my host role, so I wasn't able to unmute myself. You and John both still have host roles, so I can walk you through that, and I'll keep myself unmuted. Thank you for giving me that. I do see that Ken has a question. He has his hand up. So before we give him the opportunity to ask, if you could just go to the top under participant. If you click that and scroll 6 down, it'll say allow attendees to unmute themselves. There we go. Okay. We've unmuted everybody in the chat. I would just ask that you raise your hand and wait for John to call on you so that we can hear everybody's questions and respond appropriately. I think we could pass it over to Ken though, John.
Yeah, I think so. Just to confirm, there are some questions in the Q&A period, so I'll get to those after we hear from Ken. But if Ken can unmute himself, I think he can ask us. Yeah, there you go, Ken.
Yeah,
And if you want to turn your camera on, just a reminder, we are recording. So Ken, go ahead.
I'll let you see my my mug there. A couple of things. This is really interesting stuff. Just to give you my background, I'm obviously retired, and I'm with Transport Action Ontario, which is a very long-standing non-profit advocacy group for better transportation in Ontario. And we've done a lot of work with the Southwestern Ontario Transportation Task Force, and we've written recommendations for them about primarily about rail services in Southwestern Ontario, which we think we're really dragging our heels on that, and that's both a provincial and federal responsibility. And as you know, sometimes it's very difficult to get the attention of federal and provincial governments when you're an advocacy group. But just going back to a couple of points there, the North Main Line, as we call it, that comes through Perth County to the north of Oxford County, there is some discussion going on right now about how that line is going to be developed by Metrolinx. It's still early stages. As you know, Doug Ford committed $160 million for the improvements on that line. It was a very subjective number, but nevertheless, I believe we are given to believe that MTO and Metrolinx has taken a hard look at it. One of the recommendations I made to the mayor of Zora Township and East Zora Tavistock was that they should perhaps intervene to look at possibly having a station in Shakespeare that would serve North Oxford County and give people in North Oxford County a way of accessing both London and Kitchener-Waterloo and ultimately Toronto from North Oxford. That's obviously long-term thinking, but it might be worth putting into the plan, because you're right, it's owned by CN, but I kind of figure that what's going to happen is it's going to be owned by Metrolinx eventually, because the amount of passenger potential outweighs what is the amount of freight traffic on that line right now. That's one issue. The other issue is that a number of years ago, we had a CAO of Oxford County called Peter Crockett, and Peter retired. Some of you may know Peter Crockett if you've been around for any length of time. Peter was a very astute man, and we did a lot of work with Peter on both passenger rail and truck rail intermodal, because he was keen on both of them. When Peter left, the county seemed to have lost momentum on that. The CEO that recently departed didn't seem to have much interest in it, and we're not sure what the new CEO will have very much interest in it. But it concerns me that really that we seem to be road focused, and which is fine. I know it's the primary method of transportation for most people, but it seems to me, and you know as Parsons probably, that there's a lot of interest in rail as a low emission way of moving people and freight. And one of my observations is that particularly on the east side of Woodstock, where there's a tremendous amount of industrial development going on out there, just that there are probably 400 or 500 truck portals being added to buildings out there, which is rather scary because all those trucks have got to go somewhere. And when Peter Crockett was around, there was some discussion about perhaps approaching CN or CP or even one of the big logistics suppliers, providers, about putting an intermodal terminal in Woodstock to handle both the industrial product inputs and outputs in and out of the county and the agricultural inputs and outputs, which are significant. But unless we get some political support for that, I think it's going to be very difficult to move that rail situation forward. And yet it needs to be, because it's the way things are going. Globally, it's the way things are going. So I'm not sure, this is really just a comment more than anything else, but I just kind of feel that rail is a poor cousin, because roads are popular, there's ribbon cutting events, opportunities, and people enjoy roads because people generally like to drive. But the other reason I think rail is important is, you touched on it in your slide, that we are an aging county. Our demographics are definitely sliding, towards the century, not to the infant side of things. And a lot of those people would prefer to use rail rather than drive, and especially along the 401, which is really just becoming one massive parking lot as you approach Kitchener. So, there are many aspects of this and lots of ideas, but anyway, I'll stop there just to give you sort of a flavour of what's gone on in the past and some of the political issues that we were making progress on that seems to have kind of just lapsed because we don't have any enthusiasts now, within the mayoralty and the senior management within the county.
Ken, very well spoken comments. Maybe I can ask you if you put your hand down, and we'll respond. First up, the idea of a station on the CN line in Shakespeare is something we will look at, and you're quite right. If it does benefit Oxford County, it's worthwhile to include it in the master plan, because it really does give some credence to any future studies that might go to support that, and maybe lobby Metrolinx or others to consider it. So that's the first thing. Second, I've known Peter Crockett for a very long time, and all his various iterations, and I would agree with you, he's quite the visionary guy. And I know that the Southwest Ontario MTO project was looking at how to better utilize all of the transportation modes, rather than just using the highways and trucking, although it is the mode of choice for most industries because of the just-in-time requirement to get goods to market or supplies to industry. But I do think that it's worth looking at a truck rail intermodal, and if Peter has done any preliminary work on that, I'd love to see it. I think our team would love to see it and consider it, because the trucking industry, the agricultural industry are all key contributors to Oxford County's economic vitality, and we do want to find ways to serve them better if we can. And as you say, the 401 is getting quite congested. Having traveled it, one lane is pretty much all occupied by a train of transport trucks these days, completely. So, well, good comments, and if you have anything to say that we can, or send to us that we can look at in terms of that intermodal proposals, I'd love to see them. Ryan or John, before I move on to the next questions from Richard and Iva, do you have any response you want to make to Ken?
I mean, I would love to see an expansion of something like that personally. And, this is why we have a forum like that, to hear feedback. Like, in my personal experience, I went to the Blue Jays game 2 weeks ago, and every time I go to the Blue Jays game, I drive to Aldershot GO Station and take the GO train from there. So, if it were to extend farther south, then I wouldn't have to drive an hour on the 403 to go to the GO Station. So I absolutely see the value and really appreciate the comment. And thanks for being with us tonight, Ken.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Okay, so I think Ken had another comment. No, sorry, not Ken. Apologize. I've had a question. I think she was next. First off, she thanks us for the presentation, and we thank you for attending, Iva. A lot of work has been put into this, you're right, and a lot more to come as we go through some recommendations and implementation. You're asking what's the amount of feedback received in public and in person. Quite honestly, I think the world has really changed since COVID. We used to do these public meetings almost primarily in person. And of course, we would get a limited number of attendees. We're probably getting less now because people are no longer used to coming out, and there's always the trepidation about masks and what are the consequences of attending in person. So we're finding that these interactive ways of dealing with the public is much more fruitful, and we get I think our interactive map, Brian, I don't know what the statistics are today in terms of the map and other comments we received, but I think we're up to over 50 comments on the map, and I think somewhere around 20 participants tonight. So
Yeah. So I can speak to this a little bit. I think we're in a stage in the world where we're still finding out where that sweet spot is after the pandemic, right? So I see the value in virtual engagement like this, which provides people opportunities without having to spend 2 hours waiting in council chambers for us. You can listen to the presentation on your own time that we post online, skip the presentation and come to questions. So, I really think that the virtual provides people a practical, timely opportunity. Having said that, there are definitely a large portion of people who are tuned out and not interested in attending something virtual like this, which is why we prioritized having a in-person pop-up engagement event in all three of our urban centers, Tillsonburg, Ingersoll, and Woodstock. I think an established event that people are already going to, like Tillsonburg Rib Fest, we had a lot of people stop by our booth. And that was probably our best of the three engagement activities. So I really think moving forward, there has to be a mix. Your original question, Iva, how much are you seeing online versus how much are you seeing in person? I'd say it's maybe 50-50, but with a asterisk that when I see someone in person, I of course take their comments and include it if they want to give it to me, but I really do try to drive them towards the survey and the interactive map, because that's one source where we can really easily quantify and look at the data afterwards. Like John showed you with the map, we can toggle on roads comments. We can look at comments from Tillsonburg specifically in the area. So I really do like the map, and like John said, I think we've got over 50 comments so far. And just for reference, I don't have to tell most of the people in this chat room that there's not a lot of people who are usually engaged at this stage, or at this stage of the process, or for a large plan like this. I went to a seminar on virtual engagement in York Region. The group that did York Region's Transportation Master Plan said that they were aiming for 50 engagements from their online portal. They had a map similar to us, and they ended up getting 100, and they were floored, very excited with that 100. So the fact that we are still 3 weeks away from our interactive map and feedback form closing, and we're already at about half that for a county much smaller, I'm sure, than York Region. I'm happy with the opportunities that we have provided, but definitely still looking for other opportunities to improve the process.
All right, thanks, Ryan. I've also has another question. Just checking to see if anybody has their hand up. No, I do not see any hands up. I think John Grieve, I think the question is a question, when were the analyses of the county current situation done? I think we all understand the impacts of COVID, so we've been trying to counter those effects. Jonna, do you want to explain how we develop some of those numbers?
Yeah, happy to. So actually, our source of data for this assignment is actually a cloud-based service. It's called Streetlight, a company that has access to cell phone data, and so they're able to track that and convert that into travel volumes. And as a result, because we have the cloud-based system and we're not bound by the physical infrastructure required for traditional counting, I'm sure you've all seen the black tubes that roll across a road. Because we weren't bound by that, we were actually able to cover the entire network and receive all of that data. But we were also able to receive it for every day of the week and for 3 years. So we have 3 years of data. 2019, 2020, and 2021. And so what we did is we looked at all of that analysis and actually determined that, in our opinion, the most correct or the most representative numbers that we're showing here as existing are actually the 2019 numbers. We recognize that's a few years old, but that was the last year that didn't have any impact associated with COVID. There wasn't the potential for, the stay-at-home orders or the drastic change in travel patterns that we saw in 2020 and 2021. Now, as we move forward and start to forecast and do our analysis of future conditions, we are going to use some of that information we've learned and understood about the impact of COVID years so that we can accurately track or accurately measure or reflect the mode share in those future years from the base network. So it's a very interesting time to be reviewing mass amounts of data like this. But yes, we're confident that the base that we have set for this assignment or set for this project is 2019, pre any impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic, and then we're able to also utilize or take advantage of that other data we have and help us more accurately predict or analyze future trends moving forward.
Okay, thanks, John. Appreciate that. Hopefully either that helps you understand how we dealt with the situation with COVID and how some of the typical ways we collect data needs to be modified these days to try and give us a picture of where we're at and where we've come from. I've just got another question. How do you prioritize investments? Where, when, which types, and equity aspects? That's clearly a challenge at the end of the, near the end of the study is our implementation plan. We do have a weighting criteria we put together in terms of environmental impacts, social impacts, and not only capital costs or operational costs that we consider. We look at all of those and we put them in a mix, and it, reflects, I think, a broad range of implementation priorities. Usually we'll put them together in sort of a short term, maybe this year to 5-year window, a midterm, maybe 10-year window, and then long term, future things like, for example, should the Shakespeare's transit station be something that we recommend, it would probably be on the long term recommendation implementation list. But we will be looking at, funding and financing ways to fund and finance this. And once we're finished the master plan, there'll be other studies that need to be undertaken to complete the EA process, which will then help with the capital programming that Oxford County does on I guess, Ryan, you do it on an annual basis, your capital programming, prioritization, and then, there'll be the detailed design and construction programs after that. So things that we'll look at today might take a year to several years to implement, but it is the beginning of a process and tries to put everything in a bin so that we have an idea of what needs to be done. And then we start unpacking those bins in a process that is hopefully equitable across all modes of transportation. Ryan, I don't know if you want to. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, I thought you handled that question very adequately, John. I was just going to add, if I could, something else related to intercommunity hubs and Ken's discussion about that. We had a series of reports from 2016, 2018, I assume probably under the Peter Crockett days, that discussed connecting southwestern Ontario and overview of key issues facing public and freight transportation, freight mobility, transportation efficiency in southwestern Ontario. So those are available on our reports and publications, under reports and publications on our Oxford County website. And one other thing on intermodal rail terminals, which we discussed, and I would love to take to the Blue Jays games, was identified in the 2019 TMP as something that could be explored coming out of the Southwest Links plan. That is the 4 series of reports that I discussed are on the Oxford County website.
Perfect.
Yeah, and those documents, we have reviewed them as part of our background review. So definitely are part of the overall picture of this assignment, and absolutely we will be looking at incorporating those policies. Often a master plan absolutely has infrastructure improvements identified within it, but personally my goal of every master plan that I've worked on is to have that policy and that policy framework and direction to keep the county, keep whomever moving forward on important initiatives. So like something like an intermodal facility, this master plan can give it continued like it can help it move along its path. It can give it that policy framework, that base to grow from and move that initiative forward. And so that's really where we can, as I say, develop and prepare a successful master plan that ultimately serves the residents of the county and users of the county best.
Great. Thanks for that, John. And there's a few more questions that have come in, and Richard has got a new question, and Thomas, you've got a couple of questions. We'll get to yours right after we respond to Richard. John Grieve, I'll just read the question so everybody can know. Can the streetlight data be used to identify local transit hubs within the county? If so, for each identified location or area, can the associated trip origin destinations be identified? If there are clear local transport demand patterns, will potential non-private auto transport options be suggested? John, do you want to take a shot at this?
Yeah, no, happy to. So yes, well, so our streetlight data, yes, we were able to understand origin and destination patterns. That's actually one of the great benefits of this type of data is it's not only just giving us volume data, but we then can look at that data and understand its origin destination. And so we have, or we are in the process of analyzing all of that and understanding from a broad sense where are people from Zora Township, as an example, generally traveling to. Are they staying within the county, within the other 7 municipalities, or are they traveling outside those municipalities? And we actually can determine to which other municipalities they are going. And so, yes, should we identify high travel routes, or when we identify high travel routes, we do look at opportunities of what's the improvement, or what could the improvement be to meet future demands. So, population is going to grow. That high volume route likely is going to experience additional traffic. And so what are the improvements? And providing a transit option, an active transportation facility option, or another multimodal improvement is always considered, or is absolutely considered, in addition to potential road network improvements. Those the big push of any municipal infrastructure improvement these days is that you develop a complete street, or you provide opportunities for all users. So that's something we will absolutely keep at the forefront of all improvements we recommend, is that we're considering on those all of those modes, and the streetlight data is definitely going to help us understand travel patterns within the community so that we can maximize those improvements. Maximize the efficiency of the dollars invested in the system, and ultimately serve the most users in the most effective way.
If I could just add a couple things onto John's well-formed response there too. The streetlight data takes information from phones, right? So it doesn't necessarily identify from the phone a truck, Richard. So, but that doesn't mean that we're not considering trucks. It's just the streetlight data is more of a vehicle-based information. We're of course using the existing counts that we had and any other counts that we need to supplement the streetlight data that we have. And without getting into the technical part too much, because I know our presentation today is already riveting, but the trip origin destinations on the level that you were kind of asking could be done, but we're not looking at, say, trips to Woodstock Arena from outside the county. Like you could get down to that level of discrepancy, but we're looking at a high level transportation system across the county from, like John mentioned, East Zora, Tavistock to Woodstock, not necessarily, the truck, what am I looking for here? Like a truck route from a gas station on the side of the 401 to a industrial facility that is having many trucks. The streetlight data certainly has that ability to do it, but we're not looking at that in deep of a level.
All right. Thank you. Ken, thanks for the question. Richard, thank you for the question. Thomas, you're up next, but yeah, I see that you missed the beginning of the presentation. Just a couple of reminders. First off, the evening is being recorded, so you'll be able to see this whole evening online at some point in the future. And the slide deck that we presented tonight will also be available. So if you've missed anything, you'll be able to flip through it at your leisure in the future. And the comment period just begins tonight and will be open for a couple of weeks until October 19th, later next month, I guess. So hopefully that helped you with the fact that you joined late. Your first question is is the carbon footprint and effect on biodiversity of the county's transportation network being taken into consideration in the environmental impact? Yes, we will be looking at the carbon, well, maybe not the carbon footprint directly, but the whole idea of there's a climate emergency out there, and transportation is a big part of contributing to that climate emergency, and things that we can do to help address that climate emergency will be things that we will be putting on the priority list for us and the implementation strategy that comes forward. Ryan, I don't know if there's an Oxford County position on climate emergency at the moment, but we know that transportation is a big contributor to that.
I'm sure that the county is working towards net zero emissions at 2050, and that would definitely be incorporated into the transportation master plan, as with all of our projects.
Yeah. So thanks for that question, Thomas. Thomas has a second question, and I'll read it. Are these aspects that could be part of the vision for the transportation plan, so as to build in sustainability as part of our plan? Now, I think in a way we answered that in the previous question. So yes, I think sustainability is clearly an aspect of the transportation plan that will be a high priority.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, or
I was just going to say our final report's not going to be going to council until June of 2023, but there will be a section on climate change in the final report as well.
right. So again, I don't see any more questions at the moment. We will be sticking around for another half hour if there are any questions. In the meantime, or if anybody wants to put their hand up and go online and ask us any questions or make any comments. If you do leave the meeting now, just a reminder that there is a chance to make comments until October 19th. And if you go to the Speak Up Oxford website, as John showed us earlier, you can make comments on the map, and there is a comment form and a question and answer period, and you can use the QR code that is listed there to get there quickly. So with that, I will thank everybody for joining us tonight. Ryan, I don't know if you have any closing comments at the moment.
Just that, like John said, we'll be sticking around until 7 if anybody else comes into the meeting late and has any questions for us. But I will give everybody in the meeting maybe one last chance if they want to ask any questions before I finish the recording. And then I'll stop the recording. But like John said, we will stick around for another half hour in case anybody else pops in or has a late question that pops into their mind.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. Hopefully you'll stay involved throughout the whole process. And as I think John had mentioned, there'll be subsequent PCC meetings in the winter of 2023, probably February or March, but it'll be much the same format probably at that time. A few pop-up events if we can coordinate them, and interactive presentation and online service.
So I'm seeing no other questions, no other hands raised up. So I will just echo John's comments and thank you for your interest in this project and your valuable feedback and attending the first public consultation center for our 2024 Transportation Master Plan of Oxford County. And with that, I will end our recording and thank you again for everybody joining us tonight.